The transport ship landed on Redux 7 with a heavy thud that shook the metal floor beneath Marcus Webb's boots. He grabbed his single duffel bag and walked down the ramp into the harsh sunlight of the frontier world. The air hit him like a wall of heat, dry and dusty. This was it. The Calaxian Hunting Guild outpost stood before him, a massive structure of dark stone and metal that had existed for thousands of years. Marcus was 24 years old, human, and completely out of place. The guild had trained the greatest hunters in the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Only 3 humans had ever been accepted. He was the third dot inside the outpost. The equipment hall stretched before him like a cathedral. Weapons lined the walls in perfect rows. Advanced plasma rifles glowed with soft blue light. Anti-gravity harnesses hung from racks like spider webs made of light. Holographic displays showed ammunition counts and targeting systems. Everything was expensive, powerful, and alien. "The human has arrived," a voice hissed from behind him. Marcus turned to see Cerathes, a Vrexian hunter who stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her scales shifted colors as she moved, flowing from deep green to black. Her eyes were golden with vertical slits, and when she smiled, Marcus saw rows of needle-sharp teeth. "I wondered if you would actually come." Marcus nodded politely. "I'm here to learn." Cerathes laughed, a sound like steam escaping from a vent. She had been hunting for over 200 years. Her vest displayed 17 honor marks, each one representing a successful hunt of legendary difficulty. She moved closer, circling Marcus like he was prey. "Learn? From us? How amusing." Other hunters began to gather. There was Kravik, a massive insectoid warrior with 4 arms and compound eyes. Beside him stood Nera and Voss, twin hunters from a species that communicated through color changes in their skin. Guildmaster Torvin watched from the upper gallery, his ancient Krellin face unreadable. "Choose your equipment, apprentice," Cerathes said, gesturing to the walls. "Try not to select anything too complicated for your simple mind." Marcus walked along the racks slowly. He passed the plasma rifles without touching them. He ignored the anti-gravity gear and the molecular cutting tools. Instead, he stopped at a section that looked older, dustier. He pulled down a ballistic rifle, the kind that used chemical propellant to fire metal bullets. It was heavy and simple. Cerathes' scales flashed bright red with amusement. "A powder gun? How primitive. What's next? Wooden spears?" Marcus checked the rifle's action, sighted down the barrel, and nodded. He took 5 magazines of ammunition. Then he selected a coil of strong rope, a simple knife, a compass that worked on magnetic fields, and a box of chemical flares. The other hunters were laughing now. Kravik clicked his mandibles together in mirth. "The human brings rope to a hunt. Perhaps she plans to tie up his prey with knots." "At least he didn't choose rocks and sticks," Nera added, her skin flashing patterns of mockery. Marcus loaded his gear into a pack without responding. He had learned long ago that words meant nothing. Only actions mattered. Cerathes stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "Let me show you what a real hunter carries, human." She activated her harness and floated 2 feet off the ground, demonstrating the anti-gravity system. "I don't need to tire myself walking." She touched a control on her wrist and became nearly invisible as her camouflage system engaged. "I don't need to hide behind rocks." Her hand moved to the plasma rifle at her hip. "And I certainly don't need primitive chemical weapons that jam and misfire." She deactivated her systems and leaned close to Marcus. He could smell something like copper and ozone on her breath. "My people have hunted for 10,000 years. We have thermal vision that sees heat through walls. We have scales that change to match any environment. We have venom that can drop a creature 3 times your size in seconds. We were born to hunt. You humans? You're soft, short-lived, and weak. You only survived because you built machines to protect you. Marcus met her golden eyes. Maybe that's true. Maybe? Serathis' scales flushed darker. It is truth, apprentice. You will see soon enough. Guildmaster Torvin's voice echoed through the hall. Hunters, attend. The room fell silent. The ancient Krellin descended from the gallery on a floating platform. His skin was like old leather, marked with scars from 1,000 hunts. Your assignment: track the apex strider herds through the Crimson Wastes. Document their migration patterns. Record feeding behavior. Return in 7 days. He looked directly at Marcus. The wastes show no mercy to the unprepared. Equipment failures mean death. Poor decisions mean death. Pride means death. His gaze shifted to Serathis. All of you will work as a unit. Is this understood? Yes, Guildmaster, they responded in unison. The human will slow us down, Sarathis said. His primitive gear will fail in the heat. Then he will fail, Torvin replied. Or perhaps you will learn something. Dismissed. The hunting party gathered at the outpost gates as the sun began to set. 12 hunters in total, representing 8 different species. All of them were elite, decorated, experienced. All except Marcus. Sarathis activated her helmet's environmental systems. Try to keep up, human. I would hate for you to die on the first day. The paperwork would be tedious. Marcus adjusted his pack and checked his compass. The Crimson Wastes stretched before them. Endless red sand and rock formations that looked like broken teeth. The temperature would drop 40 degrees when night fell, then rise 60 degrees past what humans called comfortable when the sun returned. I'll manage, Marcus said quietly. Kravik buzzed with laughter. He'll manage. The human has confidence. This will be entertaining. They departed as twilight painted the sky purple and orange. The hunters spread out in a standard formation, their advanced sensors sweeping the terrain. Marcus walked at the rear, his boots leaving prints in the red sand. Serathis glanced back at him once. Her thermal vision showed his body heat bleeding away in the cooling air. Humans regulated temperature by sweating, which seemed disgusting and inefficient. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses. They were prey animals that somehow thought they could be predators. She smiled to herself and activated her long-range sensors. This would be a simple hunt, and when they returned, perhaps the guild would finally stop accepting humans. They didn't belong here. Marcus noticed Sarathis watching him. He said nothing. He simply walked, conserving energy, breathing steadily, and watching the landscape, with eyes that had evolved to spot patterns and track movement across vast distances. The hunt had begun. The Crimson Wastes earned their name. Everything was red, from the sand beneath their feet to the towering rock formations that rose like ancient monuments against the sky. The hunting party had been tracking for 3 days, and the heat during daylight hours was brutal. Marcus's shirt was soaked with sweat. It evaporated quickly in the dry air, cooling his skin. It was inefficient by galactic standards, but it worked. The other hunters used environmental suits that regulated their temperature artificially. Sarathis had made several comments about the smell. The human leaks, she announced over the comm system for the 4th time that day. It's revolting. How does your species tolerate such a primitive cooling system? Marcus didn't bother responding. He was scanning the ground, looking for signs. Something wasn't right. The apex striders had passed through this area 2 days ago. Their tracks were clear, massive 3-toed prints that sank deep into the sand. But there were other marks too. Disturbed earthen patterns that didn't match any creature he had studied. Scrape marks on rocks that looked fresh. Small piles of soil pushed up from below. He activated his comm. I think we should spread out less. Something's been active in this area. Kravik's laughter buzzed through the channel. The apprentice thinks. How wonderful. Please, share your wisdom with us experienced hunters. The ground shows signs of tunneling activity, Marcus continued, keeping his voice level. Large scale, recent. Sarathis appeared beside him, her camouflage deactivating. She looked at the marks he indicated, then snorted. Old strider damage. They dig for water roots. This is nothing. The pattern's wrong for striders, Marcus insisted. Their claws leave parallel marks. These are spiral patterns. Something else made these. Your concern is noted and dismissed, Sarathi said. Now stop wasting time with your paranoia. We have located the herd. Marcus watched her walk away. He looked down at the spiral marks again, then at the disturbed earth. His gut told him something was wrong, but he was just an apprentice. Nobody would listen. The hunting party converged on a massive canyon system where the apex strider herd had gathered. There were hundreds of them, enormous creatures that stood 20 feet tall at the shoulder. They moved slowly, grazing on the tough plants that grew in the canyon. Their calls echoed off the rock walls, deep sounds that rumbled through the ground. Sarathis set up her recording equipment on a ridge overlooking the herd. The other hunters spread out, documenting different aspects of the migration. Nara and Voss were analyzing feeding patterns. Kravik was collecting soil samples to determine what attracted the herds to this location. Marcus stood at the edge of the ridge, but he wasn't watching the striders. He was watching the ground. The spiral patterns were everywhere here, dozens of them. The soil was disturbed in patches, as if something large had moved beneath the surface recently. Contact established, Sarathis announced. Beginning documentation phase. Estimated completion in 4 hours. Marcus walked along the ridge, following the disturbance patterns. They all led toward the canyon. Toward the herd. He knelt and pressed his hand against the ground. Was that vibration? It was hard to tell with the striders moving around. Something's wrong, he said into his comm. The human speaks again. Kravik announced. Please, enlighten us with more of your apprentice observations. The ground is unstable here. We should move back from the ridge. Sarathis turned to look at him, her scales flashing irritation. The sensors show solid rock beneath us. Your human paranoia is becoming tiresome. Marcus opened his mouth to argue. Then the world exploded. The ground beneath them erupted outward in a spray of rock and sand. Massive shapes burst from the earth, creatures unlike anything in the guild's databases. They were 20 feet long, covered in armored plates that shifted colors to match their surroundings. Their mouths were circular, lined with rings of rotating teeth. They had no eyes that Marcus could see, void rippers. A species declared extinct for 3 centuries, but very much alive. The first ripper took Kravik, its jaws closing around him before he could react. The second hit Nara, pulling her underground in a spray of blood. The third erupted directly beneath the equipment station, destroying everything. Then the electromagnetic pulse hit. Every advanced system died at once. Plasma weapons went dark. Anti-gravity harnesses failed, dropping hunters to the ground. Communication arrays sparked and died. Environmental suits locked up. Holographic displays shattered. Chaos erupted. Hunters screamed as their technology failed. Sarathis dropped 15 feet when her harness died, hitting the ground hard. Her plasma rifle was a useless piece of metal in her hands. Marcus's ballistic rifle didn't care about electromagnetic pulses. It worked on springs, firing pins, and chemical reactions. He raised it and fired 3 quick shots into the nearest ripper. The bullets punched through its armor plates. It shrieked and withdrew. Move! Marcus shouted. Get away from the ridge. Another ripper burst from the ground where Voss had been standing. The hunter disappeared underground, his screams cutting off abruptly. 6 hunters were dead in the first 30 seconds. Marcus fired again, covering Sarathis as she scrambled to her feet. Her scales were bleeding where she had landed on rocks. Her golden eyes were wide with something Marcus had never seen in them before: fear. "My weapon won't fire," she hissed. "Run." Marcus grabbed her arm and pulled. They sprinted away from the ridge as more rippers erupted from the ground. The apex strider herd was scattering, but many weren't fast enough. The rippers were hunting everything. Guild Master Torvin's voice crackled over an emergency frequency, barely audible through the interference. "All hunters. Retreat protocol. Vault 7. Emergency lockdown." The signal died, but the message was clear. They needed to reach Vault 7, one of the old emergency shelters built when the guild was first established. It was 40 kilometers away across hostile terrain. Marcus looked around. Only 6 hunters remained from the original 12. Torvin was alive, limping from a leg injury. Sarathis was with him. 3 others were scattered nearby, their advanced gear hanging uselessly from their bodies. A ripper surfaced between them and one of the survivors. The hunter tried to run, but without his anti-gravity harness, he couldn't move fast enough. The ripper pulled him underground. 5 left. Marcus checked his ammunition. 3 magazines remaining. He had rope, a knife, chemical flares, and a compass. Primitive tools. The only thing still working. Sarathis stumbled over to him. She was breathing hard, her camouflage scales flickering randomly without her control systems to regulate them. "The vault," she gasped. "How do we reach it?" Marcus pulled out his compass. The magnetic field was distorted by the Ripper's electromagnetic abilities, but it still gave him a general direction. He looked at the sun, calculated their position, and pointed northwest. "That way. 40 kilometers. We need to move now." 40 kilometers? One of the other hunters wheezed. "Without gear? Impossible." "Then stay here and die," Marcus said simply. He started walking, his rifle ready. Sarathis looked back at the canyon. The rippers were everywhere now, hunting the strider herd. Hunting anything that moved. She looked at Marcus's back as he walked away. The human with his primitive gear. The human she had mocked. The human whose equipment still worked. She made her decision and followed. The others came after her. Guild Master Torvin brought up the rear, his old eyes watching the ground for signs of pursuit. Behind them, the crimson wastes became a killing field. The Void Rippers were reclaiming their territory after centuries of hiding underground. And the hunters, stripped of their technology, had become the prey. Marcus walked steadily, conserving his energy. His sweat evaporated in the heat. His eyes scanned for threats. His mind calculated distances and paths. He had 40 kilometers to keep them alive. And the Rippers were already following. The sun was setting, painting the crimson wastes in shades of blood and shadow. Marcus led the group of survivors through a maze of rock formations, choosing paths carefully. Behind them, the ground occasionally shuddered as Void Rippers moved through the earth. The creatures were hunting them. 5 hunters remained. Marcus, Sarathis, Guildmaster Torvin, and 2 others. Jack, a lean hunter from a species adapted to low gravity, and Mira, who had been modified with cybernetic enhancements that were now completely dead weight on her body. They had been walking for 6 hours. Marcus maintained a steady pace, not too fast, not too slow. The other hunters were struggling. Sarathis kept trying to speed up, then having to stop to catch her breath. Her species had evolved for short, explosive bursts of activity, not sustained endurance. Jack's muscles were cramping in the higher gravity. Mira's cybernetic leg was locked in place, forcing her to drag it. "We need to rest," Sarathis panted. Her scales had lost their shine. "Even you must be tired, human." Marcus was tired. His legs ached, his shoulders hurt from the rifle and pack, and his mouth was dry despite the water he had been rationing. But tired wasn't the same as unable to continue. "We rest when we have shelter," he said. "Open ground isn't safe." My sensors detected no. Sarathis stopped, realizing her sensors were dead. She had been reaching for her scanner automatically, a habit from 200 years of having it available. "We can't see them coming." "We can hear them," Marcus said, "and feel them. The rippers move underground. They create vibrations. Watch for loose sand moving when there's no wind." As if summoned by his words, the ground 30 meters to their left began to shift. Sand cascaded down a small slope that hadn't been there moments before. Something was rising. "Move," Marcus ordered. "Don't run, walk quickly." Running creates more vibrations. They moved. The ground erupted behind them, but the ripper surfaced where they had been, not where they were. It oriented on the sound of their movement, its eyeless head swinging back and forth. Marcus grabbed a chemical flare from his pack, lit it, and threw it in the opposite direction. The flare burned bright and hot, releasing smoke and chemicals. The ripper immediately shifted toward it, either confused by the heat signature or attracted to the chemical smell. "Keep moving," Marcus whispered. They put distance between themselves and the creature, sliding into a narrow passage between two rock walls. Marcus checked his compass again. They had covered about 15 kilometers. 25 to go. The sky was darkening rapidly. "We should have anti-gravity sleds," Jack groaned. "We should have comm systems to call for rescue." "We should have, we have our legs and our minds," Guildmaster Torvin interrupted. His voice was rough with age and pain from his injured leg. "That will suffice or it won't. Wishing changes nothing." Sarathis slumped against a rock wall. Her breathing was labored. "How are you still walking, human? We are stronger than you, faster than you. But you don't stop." Marcus was removing his rope from his pack. "Humans evolved differently. We didn't ambush prey like your species. We chased it, sometimes for days. We would follow an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion, then kill it. We call it persistence hunting." He tied one end of the rope around his waist. "We're not the fastest or strongest, but we can keep going when others can't. It's how we survived." He handed sections of rope to each of them. "Tie this around yourselves. If the ground opens up, the rope might save you. And if anyone falls, we can pull them back." Sarathis stared at the rope in her hands. Simple, primitive, just woven fibers. But it was something. She tied it around her waist, her claws fumbling with the knot. Marcus had to help her make it secure. "We need water," Mira said. Her voice was weak. "My suit's environmental system stored water, but I can't access it." Marcus pulled out his canteen. It was half empty, but he handed it to her. "Small sips. You're giving away your water?" Sarathis couldn't hide her surprise. "You might need it." "We all need it," Marcus replied. "We survive together, or we don't survive at all." They continued through the darkness. Marcus led by starlight and memory. He had studied the maps of this region, actually memorized them instead of relying on digital recall. The stars above gave him direction. The shapes of rock formations became landmarks. 2 hours after nightfall, Jack stepped wrong. The ground beneath him crumbled, and he started to slide into a hole. The rope around his waist went taut, and Marcus and Torvin grabbed it, pulling hard. Jack came up gasping, his eyes wide with terror. "There's a tunnel down there," he whispered. "I could feel it. They're all around us, under us." "Then we don't stop," Marcus said. They walked through the night. The temperature dropped, and the hunters who had relied on environmental suits began to shiver. Marcus shared his extra clothing, even though it didn't fit them well. He built a small fire when they took a brief rest, using dried plant material and his chemical fire starter. The warmth helped, even if it was temporary. Sarathis sat close to the fire, her scales dulled by cold. Rexians were cold-blooded. Without her suit's heating system, her body temperature was dropping dangerously low. She looked at Marcus across the flames. "I mocked you," she said quietly. "Your equipment, your methods, your species." "You did," Marcus agreed. "I was wrong." Marcus fed another piece of fuel to the fire. "You believed what you were taught. That technology made you superior. That newer meant better. And you don't believe that?" "Technology is a tool," Marcus said. "Useful when it works. But if you can't survive without it, you're not really a hunter. You're just someone with expensive equipment." Guildmaster Torvin made a sound that might have been a laugh. Wise words from an apprentice. They rested for 20 minutes, then continued. The night was endless, but so was Marcus's steady pace. Left foot, right foot, breathe, watch the ground, check the compass, keep moving. Just before dawn, Mira screamed. The ground opened beneath her, and she dropped. The rope caught her, all 5 hunters holding on. They pulled together, dragging her back up. Her cybernetic leg had been grabbed by something below. It was crushed, twisted metal now. "Can you walk?" Marcus asked. Mira tried. Her organic leg worked, but the cybernetic one was completely destroyed. "I'll slow you down." "We don't leave people behind," Marcus said. He turned to Torvin. "Can you use my rifle?" "I'm going to carry her." The old guildmaster took the weapon. Marcus helped Mira onto his back in a fireman's carry. She wasn't heavy by human standards, but the weight still pressed down on his already exhausted muscles. "This is insane," Jack said. "We need to move fast." "We move together," Marcus repeated. He started walking again, Mira on his back. Sarathis watched him. She had hunted for 2 centuries. She had killed creatures that could tear through steel. She wore honor marks that other hunters envied. But she had never seen anything like this. The human was exhausted, hurt, carrying another person, and he simply kept walking. The sun rose on their second day of retreat. In the distance, Marcus could see it, a structure built into the side of a cliff face. Vault 7. They had maybe 4 kilometers left. The ground behind them exploded. 2 void rippers surfaced, their circular mouths open wide. They had been following all night, waiting for the hunters to tire. "Run!" Marcus shouted. Still carrying Mira, they ran. Torvin fired the ballistic rifle, the shots forcing one ripper to withdraw. The other came on, moving fast through the sand. Jack's foot caught on a rock, and he went down, tangled in the rope that connected them all. Sarathis grabbed him and pulled him up with strength born of desperation. They ran together, the vault growing closer. 2 kilometers. 1 kilometer. The ripper was right behind them. Marcus set Mira down at the vault entrance and turned. He had 3 chemical flares left. He lit all of them and threw them into the ripper's mouth as it lunged. The creature jerked back, confused, burning chemicals fouling its senses. "Get the door open," Marcus yelled. The vault door was massive, designed to resist anything. It was also manual, requiring physical strength and problem-solving to operate. There were no electronic locks here, no digital systems. Just mechanical puzzles and pure muscle. Marcus ran to the control mechanism, while the others held off the rippers with his rifle. His hands moved over the system, reading the ancient inscriptions. "Pull this lever, turn this wheel, align these gears." The door began to open. Slowly. Too slowly. The second ripper was coming around for another attack. Torvin was out of ammunition. Marcus put his entire body weight into the wheel, turning it faster. His muscles screamed in protest. The door opened wider. Wide enough. Inside. Now. They scrambled through the opening. Marcus was last, diving in as a Ripper's jaws snapped shut where he had been standing. He grabbed the internal release, and the massive door slammed closed with a boom that echoed through the vault. They were sealed inside. 5 hunters, exhausted and battered, but alive. And outside, the Void Rippers began to dig. Vault 7 was dark. Not the gentle darkness of night, but complete and absolute blackness. The kind of darkness that pressed against your eyes and made you doubt they were open at all. The 5 hunters stood just inside the massive door, breathing hard, listening to the sound of their own heartbeats. Then they heard it. A scraping sound from outside. The Void Rippers were testing the door. "Lights," Sarathi said. Her voice sounded small in the darkness. "Someone activate lights." "Nothing's working," Jack replied. Marcus could hear panic creeping into his voice. "My cybernetic eyes are dead. I can't see anything. I'm blind." "Everyone stay calm," Marcus said. He shrugged off his pack, moving carefully in the darkness. His hands found the familiar shape of his emergency supplies. He pulled out a chemical light stick, bent it, and shook it. Green light bloomed in the darkness, weak but blessed. The light revealed a large chamber carved from solid rock. Everything was old, built during the guild's founding when technology was less reliable. Storage crates lined the walls. There were no computer screens, no holographic displays, no power indicators. Just stone, metal, and dust. "It's freezing," Mira whispered. She was right. The vault was underground, insulated from the surface heat. The temperature was dropping fast. Marcus looked at the others. Jack was holding his head, disoriented without his cybernetic vision. Mira was shivering, her body going into shock from the cold and her injuries. Torvin was leaning against a wall, his injured leg bleeding through an improvised bandage. And Sarathis was the worst. She had gone completely still, her scales turning pale gray. Her breathing was shallow. Cold-blooded species like the Vrexians needed external heat sources. In the cold darkness of the vault, she was going into torpor. She would die if she stayed cold. "We need heat and light," Marcus said. "And we need them now." He moved deeper into the vault, holding up the chemical light. There had to be supplies here. The vaults were designed for exactly this kind of emergency. He found a storage locker marked with symbols he didn't recognize, but the mechanical lock was simple. He worked at it, his fingers clumsy from exhaustion. The locker opened. Inside were sealed containers. Marcus opened one and found what he needed: chemical heating tablets, more light sticks, basic medical supplies, sealed water, and something that looked like pressed food bars. "Torvin," Marcus called. "I need help reading these labels." The old guildmaster limped over. Despite his injury and exhaustion, his mind was still sharp. He examined the supplies and nodded. "Heat tablets. Combine 2. Add water. They burn for 4 hours. These are ancient, but the chemistry should still work." They set up a heating station in the center of the chamber. Marcus carefully combined the tablets, added water from a supply tank, and stepped back. The mixture began to burn with a steady red glow, producing heat without smoke. It wasn't much, but it was something. Sarathas crawled toward the heat like a desert creature finding water. She pressed her scales against the warm metal container, her whole body shaking. "Cold," she whispered. "So cold." Marcus took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. It wouldn't fit properly, but it would help trap what body heat she could generate. Then he turned to the others. "Mira, let me look at your leg." He examined the destroyed cybernetic limb. The organic part was badly bruised but not broken. The metal was beyond repair. Using his knife and some cable from the supplies, he created a splint and a crude crutch. "You won't run any marathons, but you can move." Jack was sitting in a corner, his hands over his useless cybernetic eyes. I can't hunt without sight. I'm useless. You have hands, Marcus said. You can feel. And you can think. That's not useless. He activated more light sticks, placing them around the chamber to create pools of illumination. The vault slowly became visible. It was larger than he first thought, with multiple chambers connected by corridors. All of it was ancient, primitive, and completely functional. A massive boom echoed through the vault. The Rippers were attacking the door. How long will it hold? Sarathis asked. She was recovering slowly by the heat, color returning to her scales. The door is solid, Torvin said. 3 feet of alloyed metal. But if they dig around it, he didn't need to finish. They all understood. Marcus explored the vault, mapping it in his mind. There were sleeping alcoves, a water filtration system that worked on mechanical pumps, storage rooms, and a medical station with basic tools. Everything was manual. Everything required human hands and human thinking to operate. He found something else too. A maintenance shaft system. The tunnels were narrow, meant for emergency evacuation. They ran through the cliff face and emerged about 3 kilometers away. It was a way out. He returned to the main chamber and explained what he had found. We can escape through the maintenance shafts, but we'll need to time it perfectly. The Rippers are attracted to electromagnetic signatures. All of you have cybernetic implants, yes? They nodded. Every guild member received baseline neural implants for communication and data storage. Standard equipment that was now a liability. The implants are dead from the EMP, Jack said. How would the Rippers detect them? The implants might be inactive, but they still produce a weak electromagnetic field, Marcus explained. That's what the Rippers are tracking. It's why they found us so easily. But you don't have implants, Sarathis realized. You refused them during your apprentice intake. I wanted to rely on my own memory and judgment, Marcus said. It seemed important at the time. Everyone told me I was being foolish. Torvin made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. Foolish. The human was the only wise one among us. Another boom shook the vault. Dust fell from the ceiling. My plan is this, Marcus said. We trigger a controlled collapse in the main tunnel. It will seal the Rippers out of this section. While they're digging through the collapse, we escape through the maintenance shafts. A controlled collapse? Mira looked skeptical. We have no explosives, no tools. We have the vault's old support systems, Marcus interrupted. Look at the architecture. These support pillars are load-bearing. Remove the right ones in the right sequence, and this section comes down. But the shaft system is structurally separate. It will survive. That's insane, Jack said. It's possible, Torvin countered. Difficult, dangerous, but possible. The vault was built with emergency protocols. Self-destruct was likely one of them. They spent the next 2 hours preparing. Marcus studied the structure, determining which pillars to target. Torvin helped him understand the ancient engineering principles. Sarathis, recovering strength by the heat source, rigged a timing mechanism using water flow and mechanical locks. Mira and Jack gathered supplies from the storage rooms, packing water and food into makeshift carriers, working together despite their disabilities, finding ways to contribute. I've been thinking, Sarathis said as they worked. She was sitting by the heat, her scales now showing hints of green and gold again. About what you said. That technology is just a tool. And? Marcus was calculating timing sequences, his mind working through complex mechanical problems. We forgot that, she continued. The guild used to train hunters who could survive anywhere with anything. But over centuries, we became dependent. We let our tools define us instead of using them to enhance our natural abilities. Your species are still incredible hunters, Marcus said. Your thermal vision, your camouflage, your venom. Those are gifts. But you need to remember how to hunt without the rest. Sarathis was quiet for a moment. If we survive this, I want to learn the old ways. The human ways. Another impact shook the vault, stronger this time. The Rippers were getting through. Time to move, Marcus announced. He had rigged the support pillars with mechanical releases. When triggered, they would collapse in sequence, bringing down the entire tunnel entrance. Everyone to the maintenance shaft entrance. Stay close together. They gathered at the shaft opening. It was narrow, barely wide enough for one person to crawl through at a time. The shaft stretched into darkness, sloping downward through the cliff face. Marcus checked his work one last time. The release mechanism was simple. Pull this lever, and the sequence begins. They would have approximately 2 minutes to reach the shaft and seal it before the collapse. Ready? He asked. They nodded. Even Jack, who couldn't see, looked determined. Marcus pulled the lever. The vault began to groan. Metal screamed as support pillars started to give way. The sound of grinding rock filled the air. Go, now. Mira went first, crawling awkwardly with her splinted leg. Jack followed, using his hands to feel the way. Sarathis after him, her natural climbing abilities finally useful. Torvin next, pain etched on his ancient face. Marcus went last, pulling the shaft's hatch closed behind him. Through the narrow gap, he saw the main chamber begin to collapse. Support pillars buckled. The ceiling came down in a roar of stone and dust. The tunnel entrance disappeared under tons of rubble. Outside, he heard the Rippers shriek in frustration. The hunters crawled through the maintenance shaft in darkness, feeling their way forward. The shaft was tight, cramped, designed for emergencies. But it worked. After what felt like hours, but was probably only one, they saw light ahead. Natural light. The shaft opened onto a ledge overlooking the crimson wastes. They emerged into the morning sun. Battered, exhausted, barely able to stand. But alive. In the distance, Marcus could see a rescue ship approaching. The emergency beacon from days ago had finally been answered. They had survived. The rescue ship was a beautiful sight. It descended on anti-gravity engines, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. Medical teams rushed out with modern equipment, scanners, healing pods, everything that represented the height of galactic technology. Marcus sat on a rock and watched them work. His body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Every muscle ached. His feet were blistered. His hands were cut and bruised. But he was alive. A medic approached him with a scanner. "Sir, please come inside for treatment." "Check the others first," Marcus said. "I can wait." The medic looked confused but moved on. In his culture, the injured received treatment in order of arrival. Marcus's culture said leaders eat last, get treated last, make sure everyone else is okay first. Sarathis was being loaded onto a medical platform. Her scales were regaining their full color under the ship's heating lamps. As they carried her past Marcus, she stopped them. "Put me down," she ordered. The medics hesitated but obeyed. Sarathis walked over to Marcus on unsteady legs. She stood before him, her golden eyes meeting his. "Among my people," she said formally, "there is a tradition. When someone saves your life, when they carry you through death and bring you back to the sun, we offer a bond. We call it Kastara. It means life debt, but it is more than that. It is recognition of worth." She extended her clawed hand. "I mocked you, Marcus Webb. I called you primitive. I said humans were weak. I was wrong about everything. You saved my life. You saved all of our lives. I offer you Kastara, a bond that cannot be broken. Will you accept?" Marcus stood, his tired legs protesting. He took her hand. "I accept, Sarathis. And I offer you friendship, which is what humans call it. Same thing, different name." Her scales flashed bright green and gold, colors of joy and respect. Friends, then? Unusual word. I like it. Guildmaster Torvin approached them, leaning on a medical support staff. His injured leg was wrapped in biofoam. The council will want a full report, he said. They will want to know how 5 hunters survived when 7 died. We survived because of the apprentice, Sarathis said. Because of Marcus. His equipment worked when ours failed. His methods worked when ours didn't. His species remembers things we forgot. Torvin nodded slowly. Yes, they do. That's why we invited them to join the guild. Marcus looked at the old guildmaster in surprise. You wanted humans to join? But everyone acts like we're inferior. Everyone believes what they see on the surface, Torvin replied. They see species with no claws, no venom, no natural armor. They see creatures who need clothing and tools to survive. They think this makes humans weak. He gestured to the crimson wastes behind them. But the guild's founders knew something important. They knew that true hunters don't just adapt to their environment. They adapt their environment to themselves. And they survive when everything fails. The vaults, Marcus realized. They were built without technology on purpose. Yes, the founders feared we would become too dependent on our tools. So they created the Vault Protocol. Complete technology failure in hostile territory. Only those who could think, adapt, and endure would survive. Torvin sat down on a rock with a pained grunt. Over the centuries, the protocol was forgotten. The vaults became historical curiosities. No one believed we would ever need them. We had plasma weapons, shields, medical miracles. Why would we need primitive survival skills? But you remembered, Marcus said. I am old. I remember the old stories. And when humans applied to join the guild, I read your species' history. I learned about persistence hunting. About humans who could run for days without stopping. About a species that conquered their planet not through strength or speed, but through endurance and intelligence. Sarathis settled onto the ground, her legs still weak. You were testing us. All of us, not testing. Reminding, Torvin corrected. The guild has accepted hundreds of species over thousands of years. Many are stronger than humans, faster, with better senses. But humans have something rare. They never fully trust their technology. They always have a backup plan. They remember the old ways. Marcus thought about his ballistic rifle, his compass, his rope. Simple tools that everyone had mocked. You wanted me to show them. I wanted the guild to remember what hunting really is, Torvin said. It's not about having the best equipment. It's about adapting to situations. Reading the environment. Making decisions when things go wrong. These are skills humans never lost because you're a young species. You remember what it was like to have nothing but stones and fire. The medical teams had finished their initial treatment. Mira was in a healing pod, her organic leg being repaired. Jack was receiving ocular implants to replace his damaged cybernetics. Both would recover. A communication officer approached Torvin. Guildmaster, the council is requesting immediate contact. They want to know what happened. Tell them we're coming home, Torvin said. And tell them to prepare for changes. The journey back to guild headquarters took 2 days. Marcus spent most of it sleeping, his body finally able to rest. When he woke, he found Sarathis sitting nearby, studying a manual on mechanical systems. What's that? He asked. I'm learning how things work without computers, she said. Gears, levers, basic machines. I never understood them before. I just press buttons and let systems do everything. Marcus sat up. It's not intuitive at first. No, but it's important. She looked at him. I've been a hunter for 200 years. I thought I knew everything. But I was just someone with expensive equipment, like you said. I want to be more than that. You are more than that, Marcus assured her. You have incredible natural abilities. You just need to trust them more than your tools. Will you teach me? After we return? Marcus smiled. I'm still an apprentice. I should be learning from you. Then we'll learn from each other. They arrived at guild headquarters to find the entire council assembled. The grand hall was filled with hunters from across the galaxy, all curious about the survivors of Redux 7. News had spread about the Void Rippers, about the technology failure, about the 5 who lived when 7 died. Marcus stood before the council, still wearing his damaged clothes. His ballistic rifle was slung over his shoulder. He looked very much like what he was, a tired young human who had survived something terrible. The council leader, an ancient being whose species Marcus didn't recognize, spoke first. Apprentice Marcus Webb, we have received Guildmaster Torvin's report. We have heard from Hunter Serathis. We would hear from you. Tell us, in your own words, how you survived. Marcus thought about what to say. He could talk about tactics, about reading the terrain, about mechanical systems. But that wasn't really the answer. I survived because I didn't forget, he said finally. My species is young. We've only had advanced technology for a few hundred years. Before that, we had to survive with just our bodies and our minds. We had to persist. We had to adapt. We had to remember that tools can fail. He held up his rifle. Everyone mocked this, called it primitive. But primitive isn't the same as wrong. Sometimes the old ways work because they're simple and reliable. The council notes your survival, the ancient leader said. But 7 hunters died. Elite hunters with centuries of experience. How does an apprentice of 24 years survive when they do not? Serathis stood up from the hunter section. May I speak? The council leader gestured permission. They died because we forgot what Guildmaster Torvin said, Serathis announced. Her voice carried through the hall. We forgot that tools are meant to enhance our abilities, not replace them. When our technology failed, we were helpless. But the human was not, because humans never stopped being hunters. They just became hunters with better tools. She turned to address the full assembly. I have hunted for 2 centuries. I have killed prey that would terrify most species. I wear 17 honor marks. But I learned more about hunting in 3 days with Marcus Webb than I did in my last 50 years with the guild. And what did you learn? The council leader asked. That endurance is its own form of strength. That planning ahead matters more than immediate power. That understanding your environment is better than any sensor. That a hunter who can only hunt with technology is not really a hunter at all. The hall was silent. Then Guildmaster Torvin stood. The guild was founded 3,000 years ago, he said. Founded by species who understood that hunting was about more than killing. It was about respect for your prey, understanding of your environment, and the ability to adapt and survive. Over time, we forgot this. We became collectors of technology instead of masters of the hunt. He gestured to Marcus. This human showed us what we lost. He was mocked for his choices, but his choices saved lives. He was called primitive, but his methods were wise. He was an apprentice, but he led when everyone else was lost. What does the council propose? The ancient leader asked. I propose we formally recognize Marcus Webb not as an apprentice, but as a full hunter of the guild, Torvin said. And I propose he help us remember what we forgot. The council members conferred among themselves. The vote was unanimous. Marcus Webb, the ancient leader announced, you are recognized as a hunter of the Calaxian Guild. Your honor marks are granted. 1 for survival, 1 for leadership, 1 for sacrifice. You have earned in days what takes others years. But that is not all, the leader continued. We also grant you a teaching position. You will instruct other hunters in what you call the old ways. Human methods. survival without technology. These lessons have value we denied for too long. Marcus felt overwhelmed. A full hunter. A teacher. He had come here just hoping to learn. "I accept," he said, "but I have one condition." The council looked surprised. Apprentices didn't make conditions. "I want to teach everyone, not just a few. Every hunter should know how to survive when their tools fail. Every hunter should understand the basics. That's what will keep them alive." The ancient leader's expression might have been a smile. It was hard to tell. "Agreed. You will teach. And perhaps you will learn that humans are not the only species that can remember. We simply need reminding." 3 months later, Marcus stood in front of a classroom full of elite hunters. Cerathes sat in the front row, her scales bright with attention. Behind her were dozens of others, representing species from across the galaxy. "Today we're going to talk about navigation without computers," Marcus said. He held up his compass. "This tool has been used by humans for thousands of years. It's simple. It's reliable. It works even when everything else fails." He began the lesson, explaining magnetic fields, teaching them to read stars, showing them how to create mental maps. The hunters listened, some skeptical, others curious. But they all learned, because they had finally understood the truth. The old ways weren't primitive. They were foundational. They were what you fell back on when everything else failed. And humans, young and supposedly weak, had never let themselves forget. Outside the classroom window, ships came and went, carrying hunters on missions across the galaxy. They carried plasma rifles and anti-gravity harnesses and all the marvels of technology. But now they also carried rope and compasses and ballistic rifles, just in case. Because that's what humans taught them. Always have a backup plan. Always remember the basics. Always be ready for when your tools fail and all you have left is yourself. The lesson continued. The guild adapted. And Marcus Webb, the mocked apprentice, taught the galaxy what it meant to hunt the human way. With endurance, with planning, with the wisdom to know that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. The hunt never ended. But now, they were all better prepared for it.